Welcome to the Mill City Church podcast. For a list of messages, to stream live services, or for updates on events and what's going on here at Mill City, download the Mill City Church mobile app. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy today's message.
Today, we enter into the next stage of Jesus, and it's really the end of Jesus' time here on earth. It's the beginning of the end here, and I titled this message a couple of weeks ago, Silent, Composed, and Sovereign. Today we're in Matthew chapter 26, starting in verse 57. Then those who had seized Jesus led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. Peter following him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and going inside, he sat with the guards to see the end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were seeking false testimony against Jesus that they may put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At least two came forward and said, "This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to rebuild it in 3 days." And the high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer to make? What it is that these men testify against you?" But Jesus remained silent. And the high priest said to him, "I adjure you by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his robes and said, "He has uttered blasphemy. What further witnesses do we need? You have now heard this blasphemy. What is your judgment?" And they answered, "He deserves death." Then they spit in his face and struck him. Some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Christ. Who is it that struck you?" We are stepping into one of the most intense moments across all of Scripture, and one of the most pivotal and remarkable moments across all of history. And so as not to lose the context of where we are today, we need to be reminded that all through Scripture, there's different ways to read it. There's different books, there's different reasons that different books were written. But this is not a poem. This is not a proverb. This is not even a parable. It's not a teaching moment by Jesus in the synagogue. It's not even Jesus flipping tables in the temple. This is the beginning of the end of Jesus' mission here on earth. The betrayal has happened. The arrest is complete. The disciples have scattered. And Jesus now stands alone before the religious elite. And this is how we have to look at the next few weeks as we travel through just the next few hours of time. And so that we're all on the same page where we're at here, I want to provide just a little timeline as to where we find ourselves just in the course of the day. The upper room a few weeks ago, the Lord's Supper and Jesus' final teachings with his disciples would have taken place between 6 and 9 o'clock that night. Then they would have transitioned from the upper room to the garden. And between travel and all of the time spent in the garden, Jesus praying and the disciples falling asleep and him coming back and all of those things, that would have been right in the middle of the night. We're talking like 11, 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's dark and it's nighttime. And then Judas comes with the crowd, and Jesus is arrested and taken now to Caiaphas. So we're early in the morning. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning right now. We see through different scriptures, the sun is just starting, not even to rise, but there's just a little bit of hue of light. And we know that it's early in the morning because this is before Peter's denials and the rooster crowing. And I understand that happens very early in the morning. I don't know, but I've heard. But here's what we see today in the text. While it might seem like it, Jesus is not helpless in this moment, and he continues to be in complete control. Today we step into a moment in time that looks entirely out of control. Jesus has been arrested. The mob is there. The disciples scatter. What we see from last week, the chaos of Peter cutting off Malchus's ear and Jesus healing him. And then he's abandoned. And now he stands before the religious leaders in the middle of the night. Everything about this moment feels chaotic. It's rushed. It's incredibly unjust. But we have to anchor ourselves from this text, because this moment what's going on here is not going to get any easier to unpack or read over the coming weeks. It's going to go from here to worse to worse to worse as far as the chaos and brutality of what we are going to unpack. But we have to anchor ourselves in this. Jesus is not helpless. He's not helpless in this moment. He's never been helpless. He continues to be in complete control. And what might look like chaos on the outside is Jesus' sovereignty on display. Matthew tells us that those who had seized Jesus led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered together. Now, wait a minute. It's 3 a.m. The scribes and the Pharisees have gathered at 3 a.m. And for those unfamiliar with the traditions, this is still weird, okay? They did not gather at 3 a.m. to do business as the Sanhedrin or the religious elites. This isn't normal, okay? So if it feels off that 70 plus religious leaders have gathered together at 3 a.m, you're right. This is not a natural setting, and it's out of place as it seems, and we know that this is not a fair hearing. It's not a neutral setting. And it's a coordinated effort against Jesus. Matthew 26. Now the chief priests and the whole council were seeking false testimony against Jesus that they may put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. One of the benefits that we get in this time of Scripture is that all 4 accounts of the gospel tell us their version or unpack these next few hours. So we get the benefit of being able to take from Mark and Luke and John because there's different nuances, there's different elements that one author chose to divulge or one different perspective that one of the writers gave. And this is no different here in Mark in chapter 14. What we see is this. Many bore false witness against him, but their testimony did not agree. So there's no real justified reason that Jesus is being held on trial. There's a bunch of false witnesses that are coming forward with all of these different things, but Mark tells us that not even their accounts agree with one another. So you can only imagine there's this chaotic scene of people yelling all of these different things, trying to trap him, bearing false witness, and none of them agree. And you can imagine this person says this, no, it happened this way, no, this happened. And there's just all of these things going on. And Luke tells us that the religious leaders had already, in Luke chapter 22, the religious leaders had already been seeking a way to destroy him. That's why they're there at 3 a.m, is because this is all planned. They've already set the plan in motion. And John reminds us in John chapter 18 that Caiaphas had already advised that it would be better for one man to die for the people. This is all coordinated. This is all on purpose. This has all been manufactured. And you see, the verdict of this mock trial had already been decided. The sentence was already decided. Jesus needed to be put to death, and they were just trying to find a way to manufacture how to justify it. They had a lot of laws. And the men in this room were the ones that not only upheld the laws, they were bound to them. So they were trying to find some way, some loophole, something, some little thing to grab onto in a public setting that they could say, there it is. That's our reasoning. When we know all throughout the time, people had said things and done things that were far egregious than anything that Jesus had done, and they turned a blind eye to it, and nothing came of it. But in this moment, they were trying to find something to come after him for, something to justify their means and their end. Everything about this scene is disorderly. Witnesses contradicting one another. This process itself violates all of the legal standards that the Pharisees had put in place. It's chaos, and yet right in the middle of everything, we see Jesus. He's not panicked. He's not scrambling. He's not even reacting. And he's not trying to regain control of the situation. He's completely composed. And I think this composure tells us something. It shows us something about Jesus' character that we can glean from, that we can glom onto. It tells us where his confidence is placed. Because his confidence is not in this trial. There's nothing about this trial that breeds confidence anywhere. There's nothing about this situation that would breed confidence in anyone. He's confident in the Father's plan. Because you see, he knows exactly where this is going, and he knows precisely why. He understands what his mission is, he understands what the goal is, and he is walking towards the cross. And regardless of what's going on around him, he knows that all of the chaos that's going on around him is a means to get to the end of his mission. I think this can speak to us directly. I know it spoke to me over the past few days. I told you that this message was one of the hardest I've prepared for. It's been if you don't know me, I'm not an overly emotional person. I don't cry often. I'm being honest, I sat at my desk last night and just wept over this story. Because in a world filled with noise and confusion and chaos and pressure from every angle, pressure from work and from life and from self-expectations and from family and all of these different things, situations that rise that are unfair, chaotic moments are all around us, circumstances unfold that we didn't choose many times. Circumstances arise that we have no control over, that affect us in real ways. And our instinct, my instinct, and I would like to say our, but we'll start with my instinct is to jump in, to try to fix it, to try to respond, to try to control, to try to regain the situation, to try to manipulate or try to make everything right. And all of those things speak to our lack of trust in the plan that God has for us. Because if we're able to sit back and recognize what it is that the Lord has called us to, the mission that he has us on and the goal that he has for us, all of the chaos, all of the world that's trying to pressure us and manipulate us and divert us and diverge us, all of those things, there's blinders on. You can see them right here in Jesus' life. He's not concerning himself with the things around him at the moment. He has his eyes fixed on God. But then the pressure intensifies. As the accusations continue to fly, the high priest, Caiaphas, stands up and he addresses Jesus directly. And he says, "Have you no answer to make what it is that these men testify against you?" Again, this is a moment, okay, this is my opportunity. He asked me the question. This is my opportunity to jump up and try to justify myself. That didn't happen. He didn't say that, and I didn't do. No, none of this is real. All of this is false. I don't know why I'm here. This isn't fair. This is unjust. I should be let go. All of those moments, all of those things that I would say in that moment when given an opportunity. This is where you would defend yourself. You've been given the opportunity. You can set the record straight. But Matthew says, Jesus remained silent. In a setting filled with lies, Jesus says nothing. In a moment where his reputation is being destroyed, he offers no defense. And this is not weakness. This is intentional restraint. In Isaiah, we actually see Isaiah prophesy this moment. In Isaiah 53, he said he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, like a sheep that is before its shears is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Because think about what Jesus could have done. Because he's been in a setting similar to this before. He's walked into the bee's nest before, and as things came about, he was able to defend himself. He could have dismantled every false claim. We've watched him do it before. He could have exposed every inconsistency in every single story. He could have turned the entire proceedings on its head. But he doesn't. He remains silent. We see the same thing in Mark. He remained silent and made no answer. Why? Why in a moment where he has an opportunity to speak truth, to set the record straight, does he remain silent? Because at this moment, Jesus is not looking to win an argument. He's continuing to fulfill his mission. He is completely in control of when he speaks and when he doesn't. And again, I think this challenges us, because when I'm misunderstood, misrepresented, or treated unfairly, again, it's my response, it's my natural response to want to defend myself. It's at least to respond to what's going on. But Jesus teaches us that not every accusation deserves a response. We want to set the record straight. We want to defend ourselves. We want to make sure that people understand our side. But sometimes silence is not surrendering. It's trusting in Jesus. And I think there's a lot of people in here this morning. I highlighted that statement because it struck me as I wrote it. Jesus shows us that not every accusation deserves a response. We can trust that the Lord is going to fight our battles, and there will be accusations that are true or not, and they do not deserve a response. Family Across, how many ever years it's been, I've been accused of a lot of things. Some of them have been true. Some of them have not. And in moments where I was trusting the Lord, there was this recognition that I don't have to get into that. And if I do try to do that, if I insert myself into that situation, it's probably going to make it worse. Now, in this moment, I'm confident that Jesus could have said anything and it would have been right and just and true. But he, even in that moment, chose to stay silent. When things come at you, go before the Lord and ask him, Lord, fight this battle for me. Or what should I say? When should I say it? How should I say it? Or should I say it at all? Should I do it at all? Is this worth me fighting? Or is this a moment where you can be God and I can stand here and be confident that you have my best interest in your heart and you are going to fight that battle for me? But then there's a shift that takes place. And while Jesus refuses to try to defend himself against false accusations, and even when spoken to, he chooses to stay silent before his accusers, there comes a moment in this conversation where silence is no longer the assignment and it's time for him to speak. Once again, Caiaphas addresses Jesus and he calls him to an oath. In Matthew chapter 26, Caiaphas addresses Jesus and says, I adjure you by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. We've changed. We've switched gears. This is no longer about false testimony. This is a direct question to Jesus in front of the religious leaders about his identity, about the truth of who he is, and now Jesus speaks. But not in the way that we would expect. Maybe in a way that we would expect if we know Jesus as he continued to do ministry and the way that he interacted with the Pharisees. Maybe we would expect something like this from him. But in a normal circumstance, this is nothing that we would suspect. You have said so, he says. Caiaphas says, are you the Christ? And Jesus goes, you said so. But I tell you, you have said this, but I tell you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Mark actually makes it more direct. Jesus' response starts with, I am. I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power coming on the clouds of heaven. You see, this isn't Jesus defending himself. This is Jesus making a declaration of truth in a moment of lies and false accusations and chaos. He's setting it down. He's saying, this is the truth of who I am. He isn't responding to their accusations. He remains silent when they lied about him, but he speaks when the truth is called for. And their reaction is immediate, because the truth that he just offered to them was exactly what Caiaphas was looking for to get him in the snare. The high priest tears his robes and declares he has uttered blasphemy. One single statement, one single truthful statement, and they condemn him to death. And the irony here is so incredibly evident. The only truthful statement that has occurred across this entire time is rejected, and it ends the trial. Why? Because truth confronts control. The Pharisees are not struggling with a lack of evidence. They were struggling with what the truth demanded of them. To acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God would require them to surrender, and they were unwilling to give up that control and the truth of the reality of who Jesus was came into direct opposition of the control that they were so desperately trying to glom onto. And I would argue that that tension still exists today. It doesn't look the same, but the same tension exists today. Today, it's not that people don't have access to the truth about who Jesus is. We have access to the truth of who Jesus is. Everybody has access to the gospel. Everybody has access to the Bible. Everybody can see it. They can read it. They can know it. It's the accepting of it that requires us to surrender the authority of our lives to Him. It requires us to give over the control of our life to Jesus. And Jesus shows us there's a time to remain silent, but there's also a time to speak clearly and boldly about the truth, regardless of how it's going to be received. And this moment, there's another shift. I have to tell you, I've read this passage countless times. All of these passages, the Lord's Supper to the crucifixion, and we know the story. I've read the story, and I've read the story, and we know the brutality of the Romans. We see the brutality of Roman culture. As a student of history, it's all over the place. Rome was just a brutal place and time to live. The Romans were not nice people, generally speaking. I'm sure there were some nice Roman people. But when it came to adherence to the law, when it came to usurpers, when it came to coming into conflict with Caesar or anything like that, they were steadfast and they were brutal. Crucifixion was not a new thing to them. They are brutal people. But it dawned on me for the first time this week that this isn't the Romans. This is His people. Because in this moment, the story shifts from accusation and verbal rejection to abuse. The high priest tore his robe. He has uttered blasphemy. What further witness do we need? We have now heard his blasphemy. What is your judgment? They answered. He deserves death. They spit in his face and they struck him. They slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Christ. Who is it that struck you?" Matthew tells us that they spit in his face and they struck him. Others slapped him and mocked him. Luke adds that those that were holding him in custody were mocking him as they beat him. They blindfolded him and continued to ask and mock him. "Prophesy, who is it that struck you?" And they continued. And they said many things against them, blaspheming him. And like I said, I feel like I was kind of, you get desensitized a little bit to this story. Even what it is, we get desensitized to the story because we know it. The unfair trial, the brutality of the soldiers and the guards, the confusion and the chaos of the crowds being stirred up by the Pharisees. But over the next few weeks, as we travel through this, I'm just encouraging everybody to prepare your heart. Because even though we know the story, as we unpack the next few hours of Jesus' life, I hope that we come to an understanding, a new understanding of what it is that Jesus endured for our redemption and salvation. We have to let the weight of these scenes settle into our hearts. The Creator is being struck by His creation. The one who spoke existence into the world into existence is now being mocked by the very people He formed. And you see, it's not just the world. It's not just the Romans. It's not just the outsiders that got a hold of Jesus and mocked him and brutally beat him and crucified him. It was his people. The creation, yes, all of the creation is under his authority. The Romans, the guards, everybody. But these were the Israelites. These were the Jewish people. It says they beat him. They mocked him. Who is they? Well, if we go back to the beginning of our passage, it says those who had seized him led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. These were the religious leaders of the time. These were the pastors and church leaders of the time. These were the people that the other people looked to for guidance and to understand what it was to live out a life in God's world. In John chapter 1, it says, he was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. See, it was they that rejected him. They slapped him, they prophesied, they mocked him, telling him to prophesy. These were the very people that spent years and years and years studying and seeking for the Messiah. And now that the Messiah, the creator of the universe, stands before them, they spit on him, they beat him, and they mock him. And it would seem that the one who holds authority over all things is being treated as powerless. But once again, I'm telling you, he's not powerless. Jesus is not powerless in this moment, and the worship team can come. In John chapter 10, Jesus says, "No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord." This truth is on full display in this moment. Nothing that is happening to Jesus in these moments is outside of his control. Nothing that's going on is outside of his authority. Not the arrest, not the false accusations, not the condemnation, not even the physical abuse. None of these things are beyond his authority and control. So why does he allow it? Because once again, he's on a mission to fulfill the will of the Father. He has complete trust in the Father, and he knows. We see it in the garden. Lord, if there's a way for this cup to pass from me, I'll take it, but your will, not mine. He knows what's coming. But he has complete trust in the Father, and he is set to accomplish that goal. And once again, I feel like this truth can speak directly into our lives. Because once again, situations can feel out of control. They can feel unfair. They can feel like there's no end. You're being unjustly treated. Circumstances don't make sense, and you feel like you're taking hits from every direction. I think there's a lot of people here today that feel like they're taking hits from every direction. You've walked into this place, and this is a place of solace. This is a place of rejuvenation. It's a place of healing. But as you've walked in this morning, some of you have thought, I don't know that I can take another hit. You're tired and you're worn. And I think many times it's easy for us in those moments when we're taking hits from all over, as believers even in Jesus, that you feel like somehow God has lost control. And I'm here to tell you today that God is in control. God knows what's going on in your life. God sees you. He knows you. And despite the circumstances that you find yourself in today, he has a purpose and a mission for you. Jesus, in his humanity, had a mission that he was set on completing. He knew the Father. He trusted the Father. His focus was on the cross. And for many of us, to reconcile the fact that the means of what's going on in Jesus' life, being the brutality of what it is just so that he can get to the cross, is unfathomable. But the Lord has called us to die to ourselves and to glorify him in all things. And as we live out our lives, we have an opportunity. We have this amazing relationship with Jesus that gives us the ability to walk alongside him, to know him, so that we can endure whatever it is that's going on around us for the sake of the cross. Because what we get to know is that the cross brought redemption for everyone. What the Pharisees lacked to see, what the disciples lacked to understand, what the world could never know, is that Jesus endured all of these things because he saw what was to come. Because it wasn't about the accusations. My life is the Lord's. Do with me what you will. Mock me, beat me, blindfold me, do whatever it is that you think that you need to do. Because my goal is the cross. Because he understood what needed to happen. He understood the costs that would be paid because he understood the prize that would be won. Nothing would have diverted him from this path. Jesus was not losing control in this moment. He was exercising his control of this moment. And over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to see humanity be humanity. But we have an opportunity to see Jesus in his sovereignty and in his composure and on his mission to endure what he needed to endure so that we would be able to soak in the riches of what he did. So as we end today, what the Lord had I told you, I use we and us a lot, but really over the last week, the Lord's been saying, Jay, where are you right now? I keep writing us, and he keeps saying I or we or me, and he says, Jay, what is it that you need me to be in control of in your life? What do we need the Lord to take control of in our life? Because on our own, we're spinning out of control. What areas of your life seem like there's no going back? It's too much. It's too chaotic. There's no way that I can get back to where I was. And the Lord's saying, you don't have to go back to where you was because I have you moving forward to where I have you in the future. And it's our trust in him that keeps us from trying to revert back to an easier time and push through what it is that he has for us so that we can see the storm end on the other side. Where do you need him to come through with supernatural composure? I know there's been moments in my life, whether it's been at home or at work or even here, that there's been something that I knew I wanted to say, and the Lord shut my mouth. Whether it be with Becky, or with my boys, or with my boss, or with a friend, or whatever it may have been, there's been moments, not my boss now, he's staring at me, it's weird. We're good. But really, there's moments where we could say things and the Lord goes, no, this is my battle to fight, and I need you to keep your composure here. Where do you need to choose silence instead of reacting? But where do you need the Lord to move in you in boldness to speak truth? You see, it wasn't about the words that Jesus said. It was the fact that he was just willing to continue to be who he was, speak truth, and move forward. And the last question is, where do you need him to come through in his sovereignty in places that just don't make sense? Because there's places in our lives where we can go, that just doesn't make sense. Lord, I have no idea, so I'm glad that you do. As I walked through the last few days, the person of Jesus was just like came off the page in a new way. It was so incredible. Because we see all of the chaos, and we know that everybody that's in these stories has no idea what's to come, right? Jesus is the only one that knows what's happening, really. But we get to look back on that and know that all of those things were for a very specific purpose. And it was so that Jesus could fulfill his mission. Because there is the cross, but there's also the resurrection. And we get to live in the resurrection. We get the opportunity to have right relationship with God. We have the opportunity to live a life filled with his blessings here, and we get an opportunity to live eternally with him. And it starts in part in this moment where Jesus stood alone before his enemies, not his enemies, but in the moment and before his enemies, and remained silent and trusted the Lord. And his walking and fulfilling his mission gives us this opportunity today. And I know there's many around the room that we're living in the blessings of what he did. And maybe you're here today. Maybe this is your first time. Maybe it's not. Maybe you've been here for a while. And you look around and you sense this family. Because we have this amazing family of people that know and love Jesus, and we get the opportunity to be in community and walk this thing out together. And maybe you're sitting here going, man, that would be so nice. I would love that. What does that look like? And I can tell you that this Jesus that we're going to be focusing in on over the coming weeks, that we've been in, really what it's all about, right? I mean, really it's all about him. But you get this amazing opportunity that if you put your trust in him, if you give your heart to him, if you hand over and say, Lord, I want you, Jesus, I want you to be the Lord of my life. I need you to be the boldness. I need you to be the composure. I need you to be all of those things in my life because I'm trying and I'm failing. God is so good that he's right there waiting to enter into your life.
Thanks for joining us for today's message. Don't forget to check out the Mill City Church mobile app or visit us on social media at MillCityWI to find service times and ways to get involved. If you made a decision to follow Jesus for the very first time or would like to be baptized, we want to hear from you. Click the link in the description to get in touch. Thanks again for checking out the podcast. We'll see you again soon.